Good morning everyone, and welcome to the first meeting of the year. Even though it's only 11 months to Christmas, we're marching our way through it reasonably quickly. This morning I'd just like to mention before we really get stuck into it is the sad news that I have heard, which is very bad, that they found Andrew Bagshaw, and I feel very, very sorry for the Bagshaws. So just relate that, that's good, not good. So we'll start with a karakia given by all of the councillors. Thank you very much. If that goes on the screen. Which is popping up any minute now. And failing that, Tyler.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tau.
E ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hau, tihei,
Mauri ora.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Sarah.
I forgot the end. So, I would also like to take a moment silence to acknowledge the passing of Jeremy Agar. Councillor Tyrone Fields has a few words to share. So after Tyrone has finished, we will observe a minute's silence. Tyrone, far away, please.
So Jeremy Agar of Littleton sadly passed away at his home in December 2022 at the age of 80. Jeremy was a very warm, thanks Tyler, kind, generous and fiercely intelligent human being who was devoted to his community of Littleton and Banks Peninsula. He was witty, urbane and immensely well read, and using these skills to great effect as an advocate for social justice, for the protection of our environment, and as a passionate supporter of the Crusaders and the All Blacks. His contributions were many. He was a teacher, a writer, an advocate, a trustee, a governor, a volunteer, and something of a rugby savant. He was a former Banks Peninsula District Councillor who understood the special character of the peninsula and its communities. And he also knew that Christchurch and Banks Peninsula would be stronger together. There is no better example of this than in the work he did towards the end of his life, leading the charge for a predator-free Port Hills through his work with the Summit Road Society, which will form part of a rich and deserved legacy. He will be missed. Kia ora.
I received an email yesterday from this council about the update on the odours, plural. There's only one lot of odour that's causing the problem in the eastern suburbs. Selective information being sent out to us. It says that Environment Canterbury issued a notice of non-compliance on the organics processing plant on the 15th of January. No mention of the 10th of January. At the time, the only operator was on site. One operator was on site, moving green waste from the Metro Place Eco Drop and shredding material in the processing hall. No tunnels were being loaded out to the processing hall. No screening was being undertaken. No trucks were being loaded. But they forgot to mention, or conveniently didn't mention, the biofilter, which pumps out the methane, which is 4% of the methane of the global warming content in this city. It's equivalent to a herd of 6,000 dairy cows. No mention of it. Out of the 83 days from November, December and to the 22nd of January, 42 have been 6 out of 6 maximum. And I know all about the measuring of it because I've been doing it for 8 years. 14 of 5 out of 6. So 3/4 of November, December and January have been well above the 3 out of 6, which is half. And don't get me started on the dust content, which is 300 times more than the maximum allowable. Yet no mention of it, nothing. It's hopeless. They then say that the duration of this odour is very brief and it doesn't impact residential areas. What a load of cobblers. I'm sick of the lies, the deceit and the deception from the staff of this entity. It is not good enough. It's not a permitted activity. Last week, they said it was sea lettuce from the estuary. Yes, and we've had silage from the bloody cows that are in the paddocks. Then we come to Monday, the 16th of July. Pong gets up noses by Tina. She only writes what she's given, the information she's given. Environment Canterbury issued the plant with a notice of non-compliance. They've had oodles of them over the years and nothing gets done about it. It is the 5th time during the past 12 months that the Regional Council has issued notices for the odour. Then we have a memo states that independent environment experts, Patel, Delmore and Partners, and who would engage them? They're useless. This is a bad advertisement for their business, have failed to find any offensive or objectionable compost odours in the Bromley area since they started monitoring in January last year, this time last year. Why are we being fed all this crap? It's a nonsense. Fix the thing for once and for all. Then we have a Jane Day, it says here, Council Infrastructure and Regulatory Services General Manager Jane Davies. I don't think she's ever been down there. She's never come and met us, never spoken to us. Said the estuary can emit odour under certain environment conditions, and the council believed it to be the cause of the foul odour experienced by the people in the area in the last few weeks. I tell you, why are we fed these lies, deceit and deception to get out, when you're trying to get out of a problem that you have created in the first place by allowing it to be placed where it is? Breaks 3 acts of Parliament. It breaks the consent daily. It breaks the legal documents of where it should, where it's situated and how it should operate. You were conned by that guy from Living Earth, I just can't think what his name is now. Nobody follows through. That's half the problem with this entity. Nobody follows through. Nobody gets back to people. There's no communications, and that starts from the very top. All right? I'm just telling you, we're sick of it. I'm absolutely fed up. We live in the roof of our house, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. We have to sleep downstairs. Every day, when there's a nor'east wind, I get in my car and I drive to Littleton or go down to the estuary and watch them there. I can't stand being in the house with the smell. We can't have the doors open, we can't have the windows open. The same at night. I get into my car, it doesn't happen all that often, but I did it last week. I went to the New Brighton lay-bys and slept in the car there. I go to Sumner in the lay-bys and sleep in the car there, and we shouldn't have to live like this. The people in Ukraine are living in better conditions.
Thank you, Jeffrey. You've put your point of view across, and I would say there is more resolve around this table now, which when we get our report in February, to definitely do something, and I can't preempt things, but there's a lot more compassion about definitely moving this plant in February when we get some information. So thank you very much for coming in and being so direct. Thank you. So now we have Annabelle Turley will speak on behalf of the Christchurch Central City Business Association regarding safety in the Central City. Welcome, Annabelle.
Good morning, Mayor and City Councillors. So Sean Stockman and I will talk about the keeping the Central City vibrant. Do I just push this to get it my PowerPoint? No.
They're just sorting it out.
So in the middle of last year, the Central City Business Association, with the help of the council, put a trial using roaming security guards in the street, which we called the safety team. This trial was modelled on a scheme that had been put in place in central Auckland around the high street areas in response to crime and antisocial behaviour. We wanted to run this trial to see if it was going to work here in Christchurch, and to see if we were going to get tangible outcomes that would benefit the safety of the city. We're very grateful for the council for partnering with us last year to do this trial. So some of the examples what our safety team do on a day-to-day basis, they usually start the day by asking people who are sleeping in doorways and entrances of businesses to pack up their belongings and move on. This was a massive problem prior to launching the safety team. In the city, a large number of businesses are often only single females working as retail assistants, so they didn't feel safe coming and going to work, especially when there's people in the entrance of their workplace intimidating them. Last year there was an incident outside KFC where someone was stabbed. Our safety team helped a distressed elderly person on the street who had witnessed this and stayed with her until she felt comfortable. Another example is last month they helped a tourist whose bag was stolen in Cashel Mall, which had their belongings, their passport, cards, cash. Our safety team actually talked to nearby businesses and got surveillance footage and helped the police get this tourist's bag. A good job of making the city a lot safer. Last month, our safety team had an average of 28 call-outs a day. They removed 20 individuals who were blocking shop entrances and preventing people carrying out their normal business in the city. Once we conducted the trial, we actually surveyed our members. 86% felt safer at the beginning and the end of the day when they were going to work with the safety team on board. A similar percentage felt safer trading in the central city. Over 95% would like to see the safety team continue with additional funding. So probably thinking, why should the safety team continue to be funded? We need to really continue to be a proactive with regard to safety in the city. We need to make sure that it's safe for people who are working in the city, who are visiting the city. If you look across the country, a large number of cities in New Zealand have massive issues with safety, antisocial behaviour. We want to continue to be an accessible, enjoyable new city that people can enjoy. So I'll pass you on to Sean, and he will talk to you about what it costs.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hold the role as Treasurer on the CCBA. Related to what we're discussing today, I also chair the Inner City Collaborative Group, which has been formed for approximately 18 months. And on that board we have Council, Police, the Mission, the Sallies, Mental Health and Corrections, to name a few. This group was formed out of escalating antisocial behaviour and events within the city. I've been on CCBA since 2009. I'd like to give you some background to CCBA, which is relevant to our discussion and purpose here today. Pre-quake, Council gave the Chamber of Commerce $750,000 to revitalise the central city. The Chamber quickly worked out that this wasn't their cup of tea. They had numerous discussions with Anthony Goff on the where to from here, and it was agreed that Anthony would form CCBA and the Chamber with conditions, would hand us the money to work with. It wasn't quite $750, they'd spent a wee bit of it. CCBA were careful with this money at the time and ran the ambassador program, which was 2 ambassadors. We ran events, marketing, and had a full-time employee. The ambassadors were effectively guardians that would work with tourists, shoplifters, assaults, antisocial behaviour, and they would also be dealing with police, the Sallies and the Mission to try and deal with the root cause of the problem. It was clear that the $750,000 wasn't going to do the distance, albeit we did get a small amount of money from the council at the time for funding as well as. At the time we had numerous discussions with council about a targeted rate, and again Anthony Goff put a lot of work into this. He really went over and above, and this was to be via a bid program, and there was about 1,700 properties in our area of interest. This would have raised about $600,000 a year for us to run CCBA. Well, we didn't get there. The quakes hit and the bid didn't go ahead, and we had a bit of money left, and the city was obviously decimated. CCBA formed Restart the Heart Trust, which established the container mall. We paid for cleaning, marketing, and our Paul Lonsdale, who was our manager, actually ran the whole thing. So, you know, the container mall finished, and in 2019 we had a city that was all but rebuilt that wasn't working. And in my view, the city still has some way to go. Equally now we do have what is formed of a rebuilt city. We have not only the antisocial behaviour, but we have worse antisocial behaviour than what we had pre-quake in my view. CCBA receive $180,000 per year currently from council, which we are grateful for. This will increase $30,000 per annum to a ceiling of $450,000. I have done a forecast budget for 3 years, which is very much based on actuals and allows for an increase of $30,000 per annum. The total security costs for 3 years, this is round figures, are $335,000 for the 3-year period, or $111,000 per annum. We are asking for $74,000 per annum from council, with a contribution from us on a per annum basis of approximately $38,000. So I've got some numbers up on the board there, up on the screen there for you, which you'll see. You'll see that we have in our budget, we have the security costs and all the running costs in there. Our total outgoings are $983,000 for that period, and if we don't have any funding, we had a deficit of $278,000. That's in the red in the middle. So what we're asking for effectively is about $220,000 approximately from you over 3 years, which will help fill that hole the other 58 or 60k, we can manage that from some contingency funds that we currently hold. Happy to take any questions.
At a time.
We've got time for a couple of questions. Jake, please.
Hey, I was down doing some shopping the other week and I was talking to people at AS Colour about the service, and they were just raving about how invaluable it had been and what a huge difference in their work life it had made. So I just wanted to put that on record for my colleagues. I thought we have solved this funding issue by and large. We approved a safety package last year from our Better Off funding, which wasn't entirely to go towards this, but there was a mind's eye towards it.
I think, Jake, it may have been approved for a trial period only at that time, and we've actually funded it ourselves 100% right through the end of January for the January period, because I think it was up to December.
Right. No, I know your funding covered, it was a trial and covered up to that period, but I'm just wondering where our kind of decisions kind of got us to. You know what I mean? But we'll take that offline. It's got one for you.
Mary could comment on that, where we're at.
Just to clarify that, yes, council, the elected council did approve an application into central government for funding. So we are waiting to hear about the outcome of that Better Off funding yet. So that's why the funding. Yes, yeah. Yes, yeah, yep.
We've been in contact with Megan Wood's office, and we're expecting a result really soon. This is an extremely important issue, so we're we're definitely not running away from it. So be thankful for that. Tyrone, I'll let questions go on a little bit longer because this is important.
Thanks, Phil. I'm just curious. So how many? I've got a sort of a multi-layered question, I guess. So how many people are in the safety team? Where is the staffing of it drawn from, and do they have any specialist skills in dealing with homeless people, drug and alcohol addiction, or any of the other sort of things that blight the lives of homeless people?
Yeah, these guys are security guards. They're trained security guards. We don't like them to dress like security guards, like ninjas, so to speak. We want them to have that friendly side, but they're really a conduit between the mission and the Sallies and the police. And that's what we need. That's what we need to achieve. It's part of the inner city collaborative where we realise we've got this problem, and it's not one organisation that can actually fix it. It's collectively the whole lot of us together can fix it, because it is our problem. When you see these people laying in doorways, we've actually failed as a society. Somewhere along the line, there's been a failure. If we can't help them or haven't got the resource to help them, we need to take a good look at ourselves.
Absolutely. Sam?
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. And like Jake, I actually saw firsthand about a week ago your team helping along Hereford Street. So it was good to see that in action. I thought it made a huge difference. Sean, the only thing, just with the budget that you put up, so it's really good for that 3 years. Can you just give me a sense of what it looks like after that at a high level? I mean, is this a problem that is going to occur until you get to that levy keep going up, or how does that look?
Yeah, it does, and as I say, we increased 30k a year to a ceiling of 450k at the moment. We can discuss that ceiling at some other time, but I think I'm looking at it from where I sit, and I think we're probably one guard really short. We really need two, but I think if we can get one going and see how that goes, we can perhaps have another discussion.
I guess what I mean, is just around at what point does it become self-sustainable from the levy as such? So have you kind of modelled how many years it's going to take to ratchet up to that point?
I'm thinking 4 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is possible. You just need a little bit of help in the interim to get that over the line.
Yes, and as I say, I think we might need 2, not 1. Yeah. But that's another discussion. But I think what we've trialled now has really worked, and we've had good feedback from members, and young girls, 2022 that work in shops, just feeling safer, and that's really important. And equally, just to clarify, our guard doesn't just chuck a homeless person out of a doorway, because we've learnt that you can wash a window to get rid of them, or you can blow around them, or whatever. It doesn't actually fix the problem.
Yeah.
And we need to fix the problem.
Okay, that's really useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Sean, for coming in. This is a very extremely important issue, and we will be certainly helping you out, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okey-doke, so we're moving on to 3.2, deputations by appointment. There are no deputations. There are no petitions today. So we now move into items 5 and 6, which are... And I knew Sam would be happy to move the minutes, and Tim was seconding them. So I'll put the motion at everyone. All in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you very much. So following along on this all in favour of that? Against? Thank you. We're rocking along. So now we come to item 8, which is the Metropolitan Discretionary Response Fund. Thank you very much for coming. Do you want to speak to it, or have we got a mover and seconder? Because we've all read the report. Are we happy, or you can discuss it? Sarah's happy to move. Tyler's happy to second. I've got any questions? Obviously not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Thank you. Carried. Brilliant. Now we've got through the easy stuff. I am going to move number 9 and 10 around. So number 10 will come first. Okay. So number 10 is the item which was left on the table at our last meeting. This aims to deal with the payment and appointment of directors to Christchurch to council-controlled organisations, included councillors' appointments as directors. It includes amendments suggested by Northington Partners Review of CCHL, such as the payment of directors' fees to council directors. Now, bear with me a minute. I'll go through this where we're at. So it might get a bit complex because it's complex for me, so bear with me. So if needed, I may need to pause the meeting to make sure we stay on track. After the last meeting, the following recommendations are on the table from the 14th of December 2022. Recommendation 1 deals with the paying full fees to councillors directly. It reads, it's not there, that's right, it reads, agrees that elected members who are appointed to Christchurch City Council Holdings, Christchurch New Zealand, Otatahi Housing Trust and Transwaste be entitled to receive any fees personally as their recompense for their governance work on the board. There also was an unseconded amendment proposed by Councillor Kewen to add the words at the end of the recommendation, noting that individuals may choose to donate their fees. This has since been withdrawn by Councillor Kewen. There is also a proposed foreshadowed motion limiting fees to the directors of CCHL only, which was not moved, so I've ruled this out of order and it is withdrawn. Prior to this item being left on the table, Councillor MacDonald proposed the following foreshadowed motion if recommendation 1 is not carried. It agrees that elected members who are appointed to Christchurch City Holdings Limited, Christchurch New Zealand, Otatahi Housing Trust and Transwaste will be entitled to receive 67% of their fees personally as recompense for their governance work on the boards, and it directs that the remaining 33% be paid by respective organisations to the Mayor's Welfare Fund. Does this amendment have a seconder? I'm asking. Okay. This is a foreshadowed motion and will be put if the recommendation 1A is not carried. At this point, I want to note that if we do not agree on any new policy about paying councillors their directors' fees, the status quo remains, and councillor directors will be required to pay their fees to the Mayor's Welfare Fund like we did last term. To be clear, no new amendment or motion is needed to continue with the status quo. The remaining recommendations 2 to 14 will be put, unless we have any amendments. Now, just a couple of things to note. Recommendation 12 requests that public service discount be applied. After discussing this further, I understand we have an agreement to remove this recommendation. So So we will strike recommendation 12 and it is no longer needed.
And Mr Mayor, the reason for that, just so I'm clear, is because we got confirmation that public sector discount is already in place.
Yes.
So it's sort of redundant.
Yes, we
given
discussed this
it
yesterday.
exists.
Okay. At the previous meeting, we agreed to insert the recommendation, but following further advice about wider impacts of this new wording, it is proposed for the recommendation, which was 14, now 13, which I am happy as mover, to insert in place of the wording from the previous meeting, unless there is an objection. So Kelly is the seconder, I'm the mover.
Can we see?
So move it down to...
Screen.
Yep.
So that's not the updated wording though. That's the original one.
Oh, is it? Okay. We'll just get ourselves up to...
That's it.
That's it.
Stop.
There we go.
No, go up. There. Yeah.
So which one am I looking at?
There you go. No, actually, sorry. Go down.
Number 13. Currently.
That 14 still hasn't changed. So the wording that I had, which I'll give
Sorry,
the
you carry on, Leah.
So
Yep.
14. So we're talking about 14, allowing the Christchurch NZ board to carry out its own appointments process instead of CCHL. The updated wording was, should have brought my glasses. Whilst it's noted under Section 8 of the current policy, CCHL have responsibility for the appointments of directors to Christchurch NZ and venues Otautahi. Council recommend that the policy be updated so the chairs of Christchurch NZ and venues Otautahi are to be added to the Governance and Appointments Committee for their respective appointments. There you go.
Okay. All good?
We're just breaking in a new team, so just be kind.
Yep. So just so I can get my head round this a little bit more, I'll just pause for a second, just to see where we're at, because there's a lot happening here up here at the moment.
Take it in chunks.
Okay, we're all good. So I'm just... Okay, welcome back everybody. So the mover and the seconder are happy with the changes for that. So what we'll do, hang on, I'll carry on. Righto.
Just
13 is just a noting thing. It doesn't actually really need a resolution. It was just noting it. It's not really. It's not. It's more a noting, just noting the fact. I'm not too sure it actually needs to be in there. To be fair, yeah, it's just noting something.
Okay, so Kelly and I have agreed, so that's changing. So we're back to our the
1A.
Yeah, 1A is the one we're on to. But I need to bring forward, before we consider any more foreshadow motions or amendments, I'd like to invite Leah to speak to this report and answer any questions that people may have. So, Leah, fire away, please.
If there are questions.
Are there any questions of Leah? We
I don't intend to say too much more. I think we've talked a lot about it, but if it's more so,
we've talked all around it yesterday. We've had a lot of.
So sorry, apologies for being late. I didn't read the run sheet as well as I should have. So just clarifying before we go into questions, did you change the foreshadow motion 1C? That was the only other thing we were changing.
No, that's Sam's one.
Yeah, it was just. Is that I came in late? So did that get changed?
The team have tweaked it, yeah.
It's just, all it was just changing to having the names
Yeah, it's
rather
on
than
the screen now,
CCOs.
yeah.
That's right.
It's on the screen.
That was changed because it wasn't
Yes,
clear,
perfect,
and
thank
now
you.
it is clear. It's a lot
Thank you.
better. Okay.
So yeah, I'm just going to go to questions if anyone's got questions really.
Okay. So we on now.
I was just going to ask, can we break up the decision making just so that we don't get confused what we're talking about?
We'll take it
Do each
in
one at a time.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2 to 14.
And
Yeah, so you deal with
one A first.
1A first.
Okay.
the other question I had was, could we note about the public service discount that it occurs? Because there's
Yes,
no
you
harm
can
in
do.
noting
Certainly.
that.
Absolutely, you
Certainly.
can,
It's
councillor.
not a
Yep.
decision, it's just
Yep,
happening.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Leah. Since there are no more questions, I'll ask, apart from Jamie.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah, we have traversed it pretty well, but I don't think you were there on the day that we dealt with this. Noting the professional independent advice that we've got that talks about the reasons, and they spoke about the reasons of why remuneration occurs from company directors. I guess I kind of wanted to tap into your professional role. You're the CFO of council. You've gone through this process. You've sat on boards yourself. In your professional opinion, do you think directors or council directors should be remunerated or not?
No, it's not appropriate for Leah to answer that question. That's
You can't get
it's slightly leading question.
I think that the only thing I would say is...
Okay, let me put it another way. Do you agree with the independent advice or do you disagree with it?
I'm allowed to answer that. I agree with the independent advice.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the officer recommendation that was put forward originally.
Yeah, but officers might not always agree with advice that you
Well,
give.
if the officers didn't, if they had disagreed, they would have put that in the recommendations before Christmas.
Okay, Yanni?
Given that the advice talks about the liability and the role of the directors, the council appointed directors, as a justification for the additional remuneration, have we got any examples of where council directors have taken accountability and liability for any of the decisions that CCHL has made?
Happy to answer that. So it's just not financial liability, right? That's a completely different issue. This is reputational risk. So as well, you are, as a company director, you have your responsibility around that table as a company director under the Companies Act, and you hold those. So yes, there's some indemnities, but in regards to insurance, you can insurance, but you can't insure against every single thing. Health and Safety at Work Act is a prime example. So you are taking that risk if you are perceived to actually not make the right decisions in regards to it. In addition, you've got reputational risk.
So, but what I'm trying to understand is what's been the consequence where that's happened, and why would that justify the additional remuneration?
Well, the point at the moment is that their directors have been working. They haven't been challenged on it because they're actually been doing what they are supposed to do. What we're saying to you is that there is always a risk every time you take a directorship up. So no, there's no examples of that any of our directors have been sued because they've actually been performing their roles appropriately, which is what you want them all to do. The issue is there are things, look at last year, CCHL, reputational risk of the directors, the board of directors, that is one of the risks that they take on.
So I'm just trying to understand. So if they were remunerated, would we have had a different outcome of what we had than last year for CCHL?
No.
Okay. So good, thank you. Who was putting their hand up? No one? Okay. Aaron, thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions around, obviously, the Northingtons come through with their report suggesting that people should be paid when they do extra work, so on and so forth, which kind of makes sense. But I look at us, a council, as a small version of like Parliament. It's local. Do all MPs, other than the Prime Minister, get paid the same that you're aware of?
I think they do. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
What? Sorry. Why would a cabinet minister get paid more than the others?
Please don't ask me questions on government policy.
Would that be because they are asked to do more work and take on more responsibility, potentially?
I would argue that could be the case, yes.
That could be the case, so that's why Parliament would do it that way? All right. So
I don't know. I'm not an expert in Parliament.
Neither am I.
Okay. Just double checking because I wasn't sure. I wondered if they did, and I believe that a number of MPs also own businesses and have other jobs outside of Parliament, even though Parliament has a fantastic salary.
Okay, we got.
Oh, just clarifying because I'm not sure everyone at the table understands.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Celeste.
Thank you, Leah. Perhaps this is something you can comment on, but just wondering around the process for appointing people to these directors' roles, given that they are, if the proposal is that these particular positions are paid, do you think it would be then appropriate to ensure that all those roles are put through an independent process whereby councillors, like they do for CCHL, apply and then go through the normal kind of transparent and independent process?
Yeah, so the only one that currently doesn't is OCHT. The rest all do, even Transwaste, but that's Transwaste is a different kettle of fish because it's got its own agreement. So the only one that doesn't currently is OCHT. And yes, I think they should.
Okay, thank you. Because there's now no more questions, thank you very much, Leah. Since there are no more questions, I'll ask if anyone has any further amendments or foreshadowed motions after we quietly worked through this quite hard yesterday afternoon. Sarah?
Only if the director fee thing passes, then I think Celeste's point's a valid one, and I'd foreshadow adding a resolution around an independent process for appointing OCHT in the next round. Yeah.
Fair comment? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So there are none. Apart from that, thank you very much. In that case, I think.
Can we just make sure that we've got them all?
Could you just pause for...
okay, I'll pause for a second.
Two minutes for us, please.
Yep.
We'll just make sure we've got all the notings
We've got them all. Yep.
And can we have the fresh sheet with all the strikes taken out, please? Would that be acceptable?
Yeah.
And maybe we could
10 minutes for a cup of tea.
Natural break.
And maybe we could just get a printout of the amended
print it out so it's all on the
resolution.
screen so it's easy for us
all
to
on
see.
the page.
Mayor, can I... On Councillor Cotter's comment before on number, it is now 12. Can you please go up to number 12, please? Yeah, so that one, I do, rereading this, I do think this is obsolete now. It was from the original report, and if you recall from the original report, so one of the options we said was, well, there was two things. One, we were trying to note the fact that now that there's only 2 council directors on CCHL, automatically was going to be reduced. However, one of your recommendations that you've added in actually is recommending asking CCHL to replace that. So that's sort of obsolete. The other part of that recommendation there was, in our report, we also suggested that if you, another consideration was only paying the directors on the profitable organisations. Again, that's not part of your recommendations anymore, so I am recommending that you take that out.
Okay, are we, yep.
I was just going to say, could 2 and 12 be combined? Because they go together. If you wanted to keep it in.
I don't think we need it. I don't think it actually adds any value. I think it's confusing.
So, scrap 12.
I say, I'm suggesting...
We're recommending you remove
scrap
12.
So it's up to Kelly and I, is it?
Yes.
Yep. You happy, Kelly? I'm happy. Scrap 12. Thank you. Good. So we're now only voting up to 11 when it comes
to... That's
right. Thank you. Right. Thank you very much for that, Leah. So we'll now move in to debate on 1A. Now, we'll do the debate first. Yep. So we've got anyone that wants to debate it?
Just a quick question around the process then. You know, if this fails, you've got a foreshadowed motion. Do you debate the foreshadowed motion, or how do you want to do it? Are we all talking to this as one?
If 1A fails, we go to Sam's.
Yep.
Okay. If 1A passes, we go to Sarah's.
So just one debate.
One debate.
On the and it'll all flow into itself. So
okay, so the foreshadowed motion, and then the is then all wrapped up in this debate.
Yeah. So please, one debate. So it's not just 1A; it's just one debate, and then we'll take each of the recommendations as we flow through, so there is clarity of what you're voting on. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So does anyone want to kick off the debate?
You okay with that?
Don't all speak at once. Victoria.
That's unusual.
All right, Vicky.
This is no disrespect to my other fellow councillors around the table, but for me this issue is pretty simple. We've received professional, independent advice from a reputable organisation. None of us are in dispute about that. And what they say is that it is best practice corporate governance to pay your professional directors. I've got a long professional background, so I understand that and I appreciate that. And here I am as a councillor today, but I'm also a professional, and I'm bringing my professional brain to this today. It is right that there is a discount for public service, and I've got no problem with that at all. All of us acknowledge and accept that. We are here at this table. But to me, voting against 1A just says quite clearly that you're unable to accept the professional advice that we've received about best practice, and that you think that you know best, and you quite clearly you don't understand risk. There is professional and reputational risk associated with directorships. Leah's mentioned that, and I'm fully cognizant of that, and I'd like to think that our councillors around the table also understand that. And by voting against it, you're basically saying boo-hoo to professional corporate governance best practice. So today, for the councillors, I'm really urging you to use your brain on this one. Ignore the politicking, ignore the grandstanding, ignore the virtue signalling, and use your brain on this one and vote with that, because this is really, really significant for this council going forward. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to have any debate? Mark's looking to put his hand up. Mark, and then Tim.
And
Tara.
Thank you. I'm really in two minds on this. I know what we need to do. I know the extra work that the directorships that councillors get involved with brings. I've been on 1 or 2 boards in my time and know that there are significant workloads. I also understand the professional reputation and the risk that goes with being director. So on that, I'm inclined to vote for this. But, of course, I come from the Hornby community. And the Hornby community, from what I've seen in communication this morning from a voice in Hornby, are saying don't support it. So I'm kind of conflicted. At the end of the day, I think I would probably need to go with my gut instinct, which is support it. But at the other side of it, I need to listen to my community and not support it. So it's going to be interesting to see whether at the end of the day I go with my gut or whether I abstain.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Tim?
Yeah, thank you. I am still in two minds about this. I mean, we talk about workloads. So how does a bit of money change your workload? With reputational risk, how does being paid change that? I'm still in two minds about that. I would have liked to think that if we are looking at risk, then upskilling councillors through the Institute of Directors courses would have been a good way to go forward right across the board and look at more of that, putting money into that. I think that would have been a good way to go, and maybe that should have been part of the discussion at the start. I think with the future that we've got with the Northington's report, if the only thing you take away from that is a discussion about fees, then that is a real problem around this table. There are some very, very big issues coming to the people of the city, and Northington's report, which I thought was outstanding, is facing some of those, and we as councillors around this table have to pick that up, and that to me is the biggest question and the biggest challenge. So I think I'll listen to the debate before I make my decision on this. Thank you.
Tyrone.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So look, I mean, this is a conscience vote for me, and I think that city councillors receive quite enough money from the public purse. We all work very, very hard in different areas, and you're all worth it, every single one of you. As for reputational risk, I'd find it odd if a city councillor would use their office to set themselves up for future directorships. That's not really my understanding of what our role is. If you're worried about the fact that you're going to make bad decisions and that your reputation will suffer as a result, I would suggest directors' fees aren't your biggest problem. Kia ora.
Very good. Have we got Pauline, please?
Yeah, I'll look just very quickly, because we did do a lot of this in December. I think we all spoke at length. But yeah, look, we have, Victoria's right, we have had independent advice recommending that it would be a good idea, but also noting in the report at 5.41 that the independent advice still recognises that this decision lies with councillors at our discretion. And that's what we have to look at today. And every single day that we sit around this table, we face reputational risk. Don't worry about that. So I think that the risk thing is something that's part of our job currently anyway. If we chose to go down the path of keeping remuneration, it kind of implies that those councillors on those boards work harder than others. And I don't accept that that's true, that we've all got really full diaries attending lots and lots of meetings outside of this organisation in this building. And all these roles and commitments are actually part of the job that we sign up for. So I think that we should be considered already remunerated for all the work that we do. So I won't be supporting 1A.
Okay, Sam?
Thank you. And I think I always say when there's a bit of a, not contentious debate, but a decent debate, they do kind of bring out the best in people. And I just, firstly, I guess, commend everyone for doing it in such a respectful manner. I think that is particularly useful when we do these kind of things. Look, I think, you know, I was talking to Tyler about it yesterday. I kind of look at politics being the art of compromise and going, actually, what is a way that a majority of people can work together in a constructive environment, taking into account the independent advice that's come through, the practical governance reality of operating in this environment, and then how can we make that work? And so acknowledging that 1A would be my preferred, which in best commercial terms makes perfect sense, I do wonder, and that's why I foreshadowed a motion, and I'll speak to it here as opposed to later on in the interest of time, is getting that compromise, which is effectively a third. My view is, a third goes to the tax van, a third goes to the welfare fund, and then a third is a recognition for that additional risk. And I know people have differing views on that risk, whether it's reputational or legal risk, and I know we're all well aware of our obligations in terms of risk, because if we muck up here, it's actually not us that goes to jail, it's Dawn. We are legally the only people in the country who are exempt from the Health and Safety Act, which I still find really unusual, I think, in terms of our decision making. So we just need to put that kind of thing in perspective. But I think the other side of that, and no one comes to these roles for money, but it will be a very quick race to the bottom if you're not recognising that work that people do. And I think that, Pauline put it really well when she said there is an element of work that everyone does that we're already compensated for. But the juxtaposition of that really is, if that is the case, we literally have a paper next which is recognising additional work that the Deputy Mayor is doing that other people would not be doing, and paying for that. So I don't say that to create conflict. But what I'm saying, well, the Mayor's are separate, but what I'm saying is that actually in a pool like that, if the majority position is effectively to say that no, we should all be paid the same, then we do get in a situation, and potentially the next paper, which says, well, is that the case as well? So my sort of view is, I just hope people have a really open mind to this, park the politics to the side and think, what is the best way where we can get good outcomes, acknowledging independent advice that reflects commercial realities, but hopefully that middle ground is really that 30-30-30, which is acknowledging we still contribute on top of the public service discount to the Mayor's Welfare Fund. Some goes to the tax man, and then some keeps councillors remunerated for that work. So I guess it really becomes one of those discussions, and this paper for the next paper is, are we prepared to literally equalise everything? And if that is the case, that is fine. But then it does really pose that question in the next one, which is, are we prepared to do the same? So I just want people to factor that into their thinking. Are we prepared to value the people we're asking to go and do additional work, or actually are we not? And I think if you get to that point, we just need to have that constructive discussion as a council, and I hope people can do that right now.
James and then Celeste.
Cheers. Look, I've previously served as director of various council CCTOs and have had the equivalent of about 9 years worth of directors' fees donated to charity. And I serve as an independent director outside of council. But as of today, if the council fees were paid, or as of tomorrow, it no longer affects me because I'm no longer on a board that pays fees here. But there's obviously additional work and liability when serving as a councillor on a board of directors of a company. But to be really honest with you, it's actually not the additional workload that sells me on this. I think that as councillors, there are ebbs and flows with respect to workload, and there have been times that any councillor will be under enormous pressure from their community, which others are not. And that happens to all of us at different times. The difference really, though, is that the liability doesn't change. And as a councillor, Sam's pointed to that, the Remuneration Authority actually takes into account that you're absolved of a number of liabilities that company directors are not. And I think for me, that's the real crux of it. Under the Health and Safety Act, if a decision you make or don't make results in serious injury, as a director, you can be held criminally liable. As a councillor, acting as a councillor, you cannot. So the Local Government Act absolves councillors of that responsibility and absolves them of prosecution when they're acting as councillors. Company directors, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're a councillor director or not, or who appointed you. You're either serving in a capacity on the board or you're not. And if you're not, then you're not in the gun, but different laws apply to you as a councillor versus a company director. So companies can often provide professional indemnities, but they only go so far. I think there's also a bit of a misnomer of how far that protects you. Yes, you can be insured, so some of your legal fees are covered, but they can't stop you going to prison. They can't stop you being held criminally liable. They can't protect you against reputational damage. And failing to undertake your director's duties means you can be held criminally and personally liable. Just ask Jenny Shipley. And in fact, there's almost an unlimited number of examples. A recent one being a company director from up in Auckland in about 2020 who was prosecuted under the Companies Act, a director of a roofing company who breached his director's duties, acting in bad faith and conduct which resulted in loss to that company. It led to him being sentenced to prison for 5 years and 6 months by the Auckland court. So as a director, the law is agnostic to who appointed you. It's agnostic to the Local Government Act. It's agnostic to the additional workload. It cares about the Insolvency Act, the Health and Safety Act, the Companies Act, directors' duties. So, I value the insight that councillors bring in their role, but at the end of the day, those people that sit around the table have a different level of liability and responsibility that the law views quite differently. And I think that it's not fair for some around that table who have the same set of expectations and liabilities to be remunerated and others not. Councillors are well within their rights to donate whatever they want to charity, many do. And I'd just like to finish on saying that we've paid for independent expert advice, which we've got. And if you want to make a political decision, you're entitled to do that, but it's not part and parcel of being a councillor. You can have that opinion, but the law doesn't share that opinion. In failing that, I'd support the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because I think it goes some way to differentiating the difference that the law and Northington Partners have outlined. Thanks.
Thank you. Celeste.
This is an interesting one. I mean, councillors, all of us, we're all expected to take on a lot of external appointments, and that just comes with as part of our normal duties, and these all come with additional workload and responsibility. In addition to taking on a directorship, many councillors might also hold a large number of unpaid and voluntary commitments. The current policy of donating all directors' fees to the Real Fund ensures that all roles and appointments are equally valued and that this workload is distributed fairly across all councillors. Bearing in mind those that take on those roles by choice and are doing it by choice, and so the concern I would have is there would be an unintended consequence that people would start going for a paid gig over those that are equally valued within the community. For the same reason, I oppose partial payment of directorships, because if the rule applies in one case, I think it should apply in all. Instead of reinstating directors' fees, I agree with the comment by Councillor Scandrett that it might be more useful to review other forms of incentive for councillors, so looking at how we can perhaps provide directorship training so that councillors can be supported to take on a wide range of paid and voluntary roles so that we can meaningfully contribute to all organisations across the city. I also would add that that would actually encourage newer councillors or councillors from different backgrounds to apply for those roles. So I actually think we'd then incentivise a broader range of people applying for these roles in the first place. Thank you.
Yanni, then Kelly.
Thank you. I appreciate that this is an interesting debate. I just want to start with kind of the advice that we've got. You know, the advice we also got from Northingtons around the port was that, a more commercial approach might see port worker remuneration at lower levels and drive better commercial returns, and that ratepayers could view the current situation as providing LPC workers with higher wages at the expense of themselves by suppressing earnings and dividends from the port. And it goes on to say that the current relationship with unionised workers will likely stay in place because the union explicitly lobbies to keep council ownership. So some of the advice that we've got, I don't think really stands up to what I want us to be as a city. I don't believe that we should race to the bottom to pay the lowest paid people less and put them on worse working conditions so that the people at the top can do better and get greater profits. We know through, sadly, the impact of the pandemic, where we thought there might be an opportunity to address the social inequity gap that was being accruing, has actually not happened. In fact, what we know through the pandemic is that those who have something and are at the top have gotten way wealthier, and those at the poor and in the middle have gotten way worse. That is completely unacceptable, and I think this policy today, we should take note of that councillors are well paid for the role that they do. A number of councillors also equally are appointed to things that have just as much reputational or risk as a holdings company. Central Plains Water, for example, our water zone committees, our community boards, a number of other trusts that we're involved with that make decisions on a day-to-day basis that impact directly on people's well-being. So I don't agree that we should pay council-appointed directors more. I don't think there's any evidence that would show that paying them more would get a better outcome. We just heard that we've had a few issues with CCHL at the end of the year, and if we remunerated our council-appointed directors, would the outcome have been any different? I think we heard it wouldn't. I've also seen that where we do pay independent directors on our council companies, that there's been almost zero accountability or liability for when things go wrong. That risk always comes back to us as the City Council, who is the owner. And you can look at things around recycling, you can look at things around city care, you can look at a number of things that our council companies have done over the course of recent history to see where the liability and the risk falls. It falls on us as the elected council for the city, not on the individual directors. I've seldom seen any director take accountability for when things go wrong, and I cannot support the increased remuneration to councillor appointed directors as a result.
Thank you, Yanni. Kelly.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, fellow councillors, for the quality of the debate. It's really interesting to see everybody's and hear everybody's perspectives. I'm happy with the advice we've been given. I've spent 30 years working for corporates. I understand and am comfortable with individuals taking on risk and being rewarded for it. We're not all equal. Our qualifications are often quite different. And if qualified, I see no problem with paying council directors who've put in the work and experience to get those qualifications. This doesn't affect me because I'm not currently a director, and I do applaud what councillors Donovan and Scandrett have said in that directorship training. I think for us would be a really useful tool if it was encouraged more. As far as the mayoral fund is concerned, I mean, if we really wanted to, we could vote at, $500,000 a year, and so I don't think, that's a strong argument there. But yeah, I'm comfortable with the advice we've been given, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Jake.
Yeah, I wasn't going to debate this because I think we've actually spent quite a bit of time talking about ourselves on issues like this, and actually we've had 2 cracks at this one now. This is not the type of thing the public expect that we're going to sit in a room and talk about endlessly. But on balance, I do accept some of the arguments around risk, but on balance, I still think that we're on these boards because of our role as city councillors. That's why we're there, and I think it's pretty obvious we're not there for our commercial nous, and that might come as news to some of my colleagues. But we are there. We are not primarily there for commercial nous. We're there to represent the view of the stakeholder and the shareholders of these companies, which is the people of Christchurch, and that is actually a role of which we are already remunerated for.
Melanie.
I just wanted to add, because nobody's mentioned this, but if you are on a board of an incorporated society and they have an employee, and you are legally liable for their health and safety. So, and usually people are not paid to be on the board of a voluntary organisation primarily, even if they do have employees. So it means that there are plenty of instances where people have their own risk and are not remunerated for that role. So I don't accept that the risk is actually a reason to remunerate any councillors who end up as board members on CCHL, and looking at it from the time point of view that other people have mentioned, again, it's the same. There's plenty of us on plenty of boards who are not remunerated for our time there, so I can't really see any reason why we should change a policy that we've had for the last 9 years.
Thank you. I'll wrap it up. I'd like to thank everybody. Sorry, Mark. Oh, Aaron, sorry. Didn't see you, mate.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add a couple of bits because I found this debate quite an interesting one. When the story ran in the paper last week or week before, I thought I'll read the comments and just get the feel of people that like to comment online. And it was pretty predictable. It did make my blood boil a little because when I remember the Brad Pitt movie 7 pretty well, when it talks about the 7 deadly sins, and sloth, envy and greed all come up in those comments time and time and time again. And it's funny how those are the things that really, really trigger people. Seeing someone else paid for work that they do more than someone else is a trigger. Not working is a trigger. someone else having more than you is a trigger. And it's interesting when that feeds into the debate at the table, because I raised Parliament before for a reason. I already knew the answer. I'm not an idiot. A backbench MP gets a base salary, but a cabinet minister gets paid more than 50% more because they have more work to do. And there's an expectation of everyone else in Parliament that those cabinet ministers will do more work and will be all over those portfolios. I was a health board member for a number of years, and I took it really, really seriously, because people's health and the staff of 10,000 odd staff are part of that organisation, and they expect you to take it seriously. So being on a board is a serious role, whether and if it's a professional board that's paid, half them are paid and half them under this regime are not, which sends out an interesting message, especially when this table talks about diversity and you want a more diverse board, but by the way, we don't want to pay you to be on there. What message does that send when you talk about the diverse people you're trying to put on there being underpaid anyway? Now we will not pay them. I mean, that is a Mickey Mouse, and Brad Pitt's never done Mickey Mouse, but that is a Mickey Mouse mix to put into one debate. This is, and I'll go back, Victoria started it and started it really well with all her years and professional legal experience. Should be looking at this and going, oh my God, how is there anything but one decision to make? And yes, it can be used as a political tool, and yes, it will be used as a political tool, because envy, greed and sloth motivates votes, and we'll see it come out all year, and it will come out time and time again. But making good decisions on behalf of your city and taking responsibility in doing it. And I have heard examples of councillors that have been unpaid on roles and said that they had not taken note of some of the agenda items because they were not paid to be there. I will not use names because I'm not a snitch, I'm not a narc, but that's the behaviour that will happen in organisations when people are given a big responsibility but not the recompense to be there. I remember all those scenes from Seven.
Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else? And I'll wrap it up. I'd just like to thank councillors for their input. It's been very good, and everyone's been respectful of everyone else. It's been very good. We have had advice from professionals, like Victoria said, Northingtons, and coming from the background I've come from, I was always told, if you're doing the work, you get paid for it. You get paid for what you do. One of the things that I note is that Christchurch City Council in our region is the only council that doesn't pay. Selwyn does, Waimak does, if people are on boards. I sat next to one of them on Transwaste, and by the way, this is for your benefit down the back, Tina, I'm not a director of Transwaste anymore, just in case you wanted to know. I support this, but if it doesn't go across the line, I certainly support Sam's motion of a third. And don't forget, if you are on there, you can give the whole lot away to charity. It doesn't matter. You know, there's no one way or another that should do it. So I will support the first one. If it fails, I will support the second one, but we'll see what happens. So I will now call for the vote. With no speakers, I will now move to the vote. Now, the one we are voting on, just to remind everyone, 1A. And if that fails, we'll go to this foreshadowed motion of...
Could we have a division, please?
We certainly can. Okay. We certainly can. So here is 1A.
Your mic's not on.
All right. The Mayor.
Speak up, Megan, it's not picking up.
Deputy Mayor Cotter. Councillor Barber. Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Donovan.
No.
Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson. No. Councillor Kewen.
Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor McClellan.
No.
Councillor Moore.
No.
Councillor Peters. Councillor Scandrett.
No.
Councillor Templeton. So
Okay, so we're... Oh,
six,
it's
seven,
good, it's written
eight,
right in front of us.
10 against.
10 versus 6 and 1 abstain. So that fails. So we now go to Councillor McDonald's amendment, which is 1B. Have we got that there?
C, it's on
C,
the-
sorry,
it's on-
C.
yeah.
Yep.
We don't know what happened to B.
Yeah. B just sort of fell out the side.
It got removed.
So,
I'm happy to second that.
okay, thank you. So do we want division on this or do we want... Okay, so...
Division again.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay, ready? Right, the Mayor.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Cotter.
No.
Councillor Barber.
Yes.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Donovan.
No.
Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson.
No.
Councillor Kewen. Councillor MacDonald.
Yes.
Councillor McClelland.
No.
Councillor Moore.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett.
No.
Councillor Templeton.
Okie doke. So we've got... Sorry, Megan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it on the screen.
I know.
Very, very good.
But the public may not be able to.
Okay. So it's 7 for and 10 against. So that is lost.
Lost.
So we now automatically go to the status quo.
That's correct. It remains.
Status quo remains.
Yeah.
I'm happy
Okay.
to move the remainder on block, whatever hasn't been moved, if that's helpful.
Thank you, Jake.
So is this...
Ah,
Okay, so we're now moving to, recommends 2 to, what are we up to now? About to 11, are we?
2 to what?
So if you want to move 2 through current.
We just need to know what the last one.
Because we took a few out.
Yeah.
2 to 14? No, we haven't debated the 14.
14's changed. Allow the Christchurch board.
That's wrong, 14. Are you on the right sheet?
Still need 3.
Shall we just pause for a second just to get our ducks in a row?
That's it.
The numbering we need to remove has been striked out though. Yeah. So
Oh, so it's just the numbering that's, yeah. Yep.
So if you're moving 2 through 13.
2 to 13 now.
Right. So, we now... Sorry, Aaron, sorry.
Just a question. Can I just ask just a clarification question, and it might be of the lawyers. I was just thinking around number 9, which is reducing the term. I'm just thinking, like, for example, Tim on V-Base. Can he vote on that because it'll automatically preclude him from future appointments to VO? So should be conflicted. Yeah. Okay.
No.
I was just thinking it. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
He
Okay.
can or he can't.
So, hang on, we've got Aaron, sorry.
I just wonder if I can move an amendment, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much.
That the volunteers who are appointed to boards have the option of where they donate their money to.
Okay, I've got a... Hang on, I'm going to pause it right there because I need to just know exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So if we just have we pause?
So, colleagues, advice please.
technically you have entered into debate, so amendments are passed.
Okay, righto, thank you. So we're back.
Could I get the Helen's opinion on Sam's point?
Sorry, Councillor Scandrett, you're not currently appointed to the board, that's my understanding. So I don't think you're currently a director for Venues Otatahi, is my understanding.
So you can vote.
To confirm, as you're not currently a director, that you're not conflicted from that point.
Sorry, what I was meaning was, sorry, it's only because we chatted last night about it. It's just around Tim's length of service on VO. The decision would automatically rule him out of being able to be put back on VO.
But that's your policy in the sense of the recommendation, but you're also able to make exceptions to that as well.
Yeah, so if the council comes if the council says, right, I'm just using an example, go, actually, Tim's experience is so significant, we don't have any other people that are putting their name forward for venues, actually we could make an exception, so you could do that. So in that regards, he could vote
Thank
for
you,
it.
Leah.
Can I just on that, just on that, because it's quite important, is that I've just checked the company's website. Tim is a current director of Venues Otatahi.
Okay.
So you are.
So Pauline has been waiting patiently there.
Just on that one, that why do we have with a third, if the council considers warranted, why don't we just say with extensions or further terms if the council, well, it doesn't have to be just a third, it could be 2 terms.
But exactly what Leah, go Leah, you were just about to say something.
So currently is when we appoint them, it's on a term of 3 terms. So
Yes, I know.
3.
I support the 2.
Yeah, but
I
to be
support the
blunt,
2.
Pauline, you don't want to go to a stage where you're encouraging people to go to more than 3 terms, right? You wouldn't say an extension if warranted. Just that covers what we're trying to do, which is going you can.
All right, so anyway, as the...
And I will not be voting on 9.
There's nothing to stop Tim, if he wanted to, standing for VO in the future by what we vote on today.
Yeah, but the council would have to acknowledge the fact that they're saying they shouldn't, and what would be the exception that you would to warrant it.
Yeah,
but
so
there's nothing wrong with us.
It doesn't exclude him from going forward, so that's cool. So, right, what we've got right now in front of us is number 2 to 14? 13, thank you. So we want to do that as a block, or do we want to go down there? Is there anyone that wants to take a particular line out and vote on it separately?
I'm headed for the block voting, but could it be just recorded that I won't be included in I won't be voting in 9?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that. So everyone's happy. So I'd like to...
I'll just record that I vote against. I just saw it as a bit of a package. So you're either going to follow advice and follow commercial best practice, which I think this kind of does, but I'm not going to cherry pick them. So based on how the votes went, I saw it as a package. So it's kind of disrupted it for me. So I'll just record my vote against.
All of it?
Yeah, I saw it as a package. That's why it's not a big deal. Why I see it as a package. It all relates to the governance and appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, just to be.
That's your choice.
Right, that's your choice. That's cool.
Clarification on 3. We've already made the decision around that those appointments, haven't we? The numbers.
Yeah. Yes, we have. So yeah. I'm going to put it from items 2 to 13. Noting that Tim is not happy with 9 and Jamie's not happy with some others. So I will put that motion. Gianni?
Can you scroll down? Just the one where you're doing the chairs on the appointments. What number is that now? It's all changed. Oh yeah, cool. So I just want my vote recorded against 12. Thanks.
Okay. So I'm going to put the motion of
Danny wants his vote recorded against 12.
Well, yeah. I'm going to put the motion of all of those as one block, apart from what I've noted with the others. All those in favour? All those against?
Nope.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. That's and Aaron.
I don't have division.
No.
Okay.
Is it Aaron?
It's carried. Yeehaw.
Right, shall we move on?
So moving on.
Item 9.
Yep, item 9, councillor remuneration. Where are you running to, Leah?
This one's not Leah's. She's very grateful it's not.
So, welcome, Helen.
Thank you. The paper is before you. This is a report that comes every triennium. The recommendation is in accordance with status quo from previous 3 triennium. So I'm happy to expand further, otherwise I can answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions on this? Okay. So, we'll just move and second there, though.
Yeah, you want to move her and second it?
So is anyone, Jake will move it, Kelly will second it. You've just missed out by a few seconds there, Kelly. So we've got any debate? Aaron?
I think...
Yeah, I'm happy to receive this and I'll be voting for it as it stands, but it will be an interesting debate that I will look forward to hearing from all my fellow councillors who just argued and voted against any councillor who does extra work being paid extra money. I believe if I ask my fellow colleagues to do more work on behalf of this city that they and take on more responsibilities, then they should be paid more because there is a bigger workload. I accept that. I think our previous Deputy Mayor, Andrew, did a really, really good job. I saw the work he did. He was paid more for it, and no one at this table complained about him doing more work and being paid more money for it. So far in this term, I've seen Pauline Cotter do the same. She stepped up and does more work than everyone else, and so I'm happy for her to be paid more money. Now, I'd love to hear from the rest of you why that didn't apply to the previous paper, but it may apply to this one. Thank you.
Oh, just really...
So I'd like to move an amendment.
Yes, please.
The amendment differs to what I'd put forward yesterday, which was essentially asking that we freeze the salaries that we were on, noting the fact that it's potentially not legally possible to reduce the size of the governance pool that the Remuneration Authority have already set, I believe, mid last year. So the amendment I'm putting forward simply states, adding to what we've got here, it's not replacing any wording, it's just adding to, which is requesting that the Remuneration Authority make no additional increases to the size of the governance remuneration pool for the remainder of this triennium ending October 2025. So essentially it's adding a number 4. It's not replacing anything in here.
Okay.
Can we just get that? Have you written it down? Or is it on your screen?
Yeah, it is on my screen. Don't let me flick it through to you.
Do you want to...
Okay, so we'll just pause for a second for Andre's amendment to get with the people at...
Coming up, we just need to adjust the numbering, so Andre, if that looks... So this is his amendment.
It's an amendment.
So yes, it's essentially deleting all of that.
Have you got it on your device? Could you please bring your device around so we can just copy?
Yeah.
You're not removing 2 and 3.
It probably would have been helpful if this had been tabled earlier, given there was a discussion at length yesterday about it.
Mm-hmm. No, you didn't.
What I put it forward a couple of days ago to discuss. Yeah,
maybe it is just because you knew, but maybe it is just because you knew, but normally you circulate the stuff to the Secretariat, so we don't wait. So we are being paid for by the ratepayer. Look around, yeah, well, you do adopt the look around the room. How many junior managers are sitting here waiting? So there's not a cost, there's a productivity cost.
Members, you were doing so well.
Go on.
Productive input in this case. We don't value productive input.
We've been doing very good today so far, ladies and gentlemen. We've just got to go into PX after this. So where is they haven't got his one up there yet, have they?
Who's no? It's just going on
just coming now.
It's just there. We've got it on the.
So I checked with Helen, and I'm going to ask her when it's public again. It is unfortunate that the REM Authority...
Yeah, well, you know, it's bringing a step on their own toes. Just going to be adamant the other way around. Yeah, that would be honourable. Yes. It makes a difference.
Helen, the Mayor will be asking you a question shortly.
Okay, people, we are back. So we now have Councillor Moore's amendment up there on the screen. I've just got a question of Helen, please, and bearing in mind what's written there in the amendment. Over the last 3 years, when I was a councillor way back, and it was always unfortunate that REM Authority came in about a month after we started, and it was like, hello, we're in here, we're going to pay ourselves a fortune, which wasn't the case. Over the last 3 years, there hasn't been any increases in the interim period. It's only seems to be every 3 years.
That's correct. There was no changes to the size of the pool for the previous triennium.
But that's not set in concrete. They could if they wanted. They meet every year, from what I understand.
That's right, but they have not for the previous triennium.
Correct. So just so I'm on the right track, this increase is around about 3%.
Yes.
It makes no bearing on me because I'm separate, but it's 3%. So in theory, we have had a 3% increase over 3 years, which is 1% a year.
Yes, you can look at it that way.
That's from that way. Thank you very much. Good. So we now have we got any more questions before I bring the amendment up? Tim?
Yeah, as I read this, Andres, it's if they make a change during the 3 year period, but they never have they? Did they? Oh, okay.
It's possible,
just
Councillor, but it's unusual.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, generally all the REM Authority increases around 1% per annum.
I can't answer that before the last 3 years. They take a number of different factors into account when they set the size of the pool, which is summarised in the report.
And what about other government departments? Do you know if they're all sitting on around a 1% increase per annum?
I'm afraid I can't answer that.
Okay.
Jake? And then Victoria?
So the Remuneration Authority, can you just explain why it's there and what its role is and why, why we don't just make this decision outright?
So the Remuneration Authority is set up by legislation to set the pools and the remuneration for different public entities, including local authorities. They also set the rates for the Prime Minister and members of Parliament and other duties as well. And the reason for that is to have a degree of independence so that it is not councillors making decisions themselves You have the ability to input and recommend, but it is not this council's decision what councillors are remunerated at.
Okay. Sorry, Victoria. And then Aaron.
Helen, just from a legal perspective, can you confirm that we actually can't bind the Remuneration Authority? All we can do is to make a recommendation, but we can't bind them.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Does the Rem Authority consider a city councillor a full-time role?
They consider this council at equivalent of a full-time role, yes.
So what's an MP?
That's a question for the Remuneration Authority I can't answer.
Right, so that's a full-time times 2?
The length of time involved in governing an authority of this size is one of the factors they look at, but there's a number of other factors that the Remuneration Authority considers before it makes a determination.
Right, okay, interesting.
Okay, so Kelly, please.
Thanks, Helen. So could you just explain why the mayor and deputy mayor are paid more than the city councillors?
So
what's the Remuneration Authority's view on that?
So the mayor is set separately. All mayors for all local authorities in New Zealand are set separately. In relation to deputy mayor, the decision or the recommendation to remunerate the deputy mayor differently is a matter for all individual councillors to explain and justify to the Remuneration Authority, and they will take it into account before they make a decision.
Okay, thank you.
There is no automatic change in remuneration for a deputy mayor.
Okay.
Okay, we're all good. So I'm now going to ask Councillor Moore. He's obviously the mover. So I need a seconder for, and that's Yanni. Thank you. So I'm going to put that.
Yeah, now put the amendment.
I'd now like to put the amendment. All those in favour?
Are you going to or are you going to say no debate?
Oh, sorry. Does anyone want to have any debate?
I think you need to still.
I'll get the amendment done first. Okay. Is there any debate on the amendment? Aaron?
So normally I would always, generally from the position I've come from in the past, is I would always support this. I think it makes sense. We send these notes through and they mostly get ignored, and that's their prerogative because they probably shouldn't be told what to do by councillors. But and I would usually support this, but given what's happened in the last 3 years across the country, I don't know that it would be super wise to lock in decisions like this when inflation was not predicted to get where it got to. The economy was predicted to crash after COVID. It didn't. It bounced back for many reasons. Most of all were unpredicted, even by the experts. So you cannot map what inflation will do over the next 3 years. So it's currently 7-8%. It could stay at 7 or 8% every year. Could go up more because this was unpredicted. Other countries have gone double digits. So if that happens, you could be looking at, in the term of making this decision, up to a 25% pay decrease. Just saying, for then, as you head forward into the future and you look at the next election, who's then putting their hands up? Because yes, people can say, oh, people put their hand up to become a city councillor, it's a really well-paid role, so on and so forth, and I think it is. But once it becomes not a well-paid role, or let's make it a really low-paid role, then only the ruling elite will send along their spouses to run the city because they will already have a great income in their household, and you wind the clock back 100 odd years where the big landowners and stuff like that had their family members go and run the cities and make the decisions for the poor people in the neighbourhoods that are paying all the bills. So careful what you vote for just here, because if you can predict the economy, you are sitting in the wrong place.
Sam.
Yeah, I normally have a rule where I don't debate these because I don't think we should actually be involved in our own pay at all. But I guess this is, I will oppose this, and I say that for the reason that there is a legislative ability for Wellington to set a pool of money so that we don't have to have these kind of debates. Quite frankly, I don't care whether it's $100 or whatever it says in there, the pool's whatever it is, 1.8 million. That's actually irrelevant. It's an independent setup for that very purpose. So I don't want this council to fall into the trap of dictating to Wellington particularly on our own pay. I think we should focus our dictation around housing and Three Waters as opposed to our own pay. And the other point, I'll just say it now so I don't debate it later, is, I mean, I'm happy to support the recommendations because I do think we should reward the Deputy Mayor for extra work. I do note that, saying that I also chair the only other committee of the whole, the Finance and Performance Committee and the Insurance Subcommittee, and I'm quite happy to acknowledge that I won't take additional remuneration for that. So I just want everyone, because I know we had a tense debate around directors' fees, to acknowledge that while some people may think there's an element of greed in this, this is not about money. This is about the principle behind it. And I'm quite happy to take on far more additional responsibility on behalf of the city with some pretty big roles, but not charge extra for them in that respect. So I just think when we have debates like this that kind of get frustrating because we're effectively virtue signalling to Wellington, when actually there is a purpose that Wellington, that Parliament, the elected people of New Zealand have set up for this very reason, that we shouldn't go and underwrite that when it's something so trivial as, you know, quite frankly, our own pay.
Thank you, Sam. Celeste.
I wasn't going to comment on this, but why the hell not? I do agree that it is there is a good reason to keep this separate from our own sort of commentary. I think that it is important to keep our remuneration separate. And there is a process for doing that. Having said that, I can see the principle behind this, which is about recognising that we are in a well-paid job and that there is value in signalling and in showing that we are aware that across the organisation people are sometimes not getting pay increases. We have had a pay increase for some sectors of the council. So I think this is a challenging one and I haven't quite made up my mind, but I do actually want to acknowledge Councillor Moore for bringing it to the table, because I do think it's something that actually we should acknowledge, at least in principle. Thank you.
Okay, Victoria, then Tim, then Pauline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, it's pretty black and white. Again, this is an independent remuneration authority, and the wording there is independent. They have a job to do. They have done their job, and as I asked of Helen, that we cannot bind the remuneration authority. So, quite frankly, it's quite a nonsense. And I'm with Sam. We shouldn't be debating about our own remuneration.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Look, if some around the table feel that their pay is excessive, then they are open to giving what they believe excess to the Mayor's Welfare Fund.
Thank you. Pauline?
Yeah, look, I'm very much echoing what Sam has spoken about with the Remuneration Authority and the reason that they are there, which has been very clearly explained by Helen. Thank you. We shouldn't be discussing our own money. And also, it's clear in the report that the Remuneration Authority uses a very strong tools when they arrive at their determination, and they look at the whole country, and it's not just looking at us. So they've arrived at this amount by themselves, without us, and that's true and correct and proper in my view. And if we were to even support that amendment, I think is actually undermining their position. And I don't think it's a really, really good thing to do. The other thing is that fast forward a few years to a new council, if the authority did listen to us and say, well, this council wants less money, they don't agree with our view of their workload and what we're worth, and if they did support that amendment themselves, a future council may face a determination from an authority for a massive increase to bring us back in line with the rest of New Zealand. And then that would not be a very good look for that council to be supporting that recommendation of possibly 20%, who knows. So I can't see myself supporting that because I think we're undermining the very reason that they're there. Also, I will indicate that I will sit back from number 2. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, look, I don't think we should touch this with a 10-foot barge pole, quite frankly. We should stay well clear of issues like this. You'd never expect to see a judge making a public comment on their remuneration, and RA sets their pay as well. Having said that, I support the principle of what Andre has put forward in terms of, people are going through a tough time, and they don't want to, they want to think that we're being prudent as well. So for that reason, I will abstain on it, because I just don't think we should be discussing it at all.
Okay, Tyrone.
So I actually really want to support what people have said around the table, in particular what Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Henstock said. I thought that was very, very well articulated. But I've long found the methodology of the Remuneration Authority suboptimal. On Banks Peninsula, the board chair receives less than any board members on the flatlands, but has to work incredibly hard in a territory that covers 70% of the city's land area. But I think in a time when people are doing it tough, the methodology isn't sophisticated enough to take into the nuances of the macro and microeconomic situation. So that said, I do support the spirit of Andre's amendment, but I also support the arguments put forward by various, including Victoria and Sam. So I'm going to abstain on this one.
Okie dokie. So we've got Tyler and then Yanni, please.
Tēnā katoa. Firstly, I want to address the really bad camera angle that comes down here. It's really bad. But secondly, around Andre's amendment, I do appreciate the spirit of it. But as everyone was talking about before, was the process is flawed, and it needs a good review around the way that we talk about our money, which we shouldn't be doing. And we do know, and I know everybody in council knows, that we are remunerated for what we do, and we're all in the community. And just going back to what people were talking about, workloads, I mean, everybody has different workloads here. Everybody does, and every community has different needs, and we have different engagements to turn up to. For a prime example is meeting up to awesome ethnic events and getting awesome food. So it's the perk of the job. So I'd really like to appreciate that. So I am going to abstain on the fact that the process is flawed. But I do tautoko Andre's sentiment around what we're looking at. So, kia ora.
Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to support the additional resolution. I think this isn't a case of us seeking to bind the Remuneration Authority. This is simply making a request. We have done this previously in terms of COVID, when COVID first hit. And it's perfectly within our right to express a view to the Remuneration Authority, acknowledging what's going on. One of the roles of the Remuneration Authority, or one of the factors that they need to consider, is fairness to both those being remunerated and the ratepayer. And what we know, and we'll soon get the revaluations, we know what impact that will have on some of the people in our community who will, I think, struggle to deal with the increased percentage that they will be facing. So I think it's more than reasonable to put forward this request to the Remuneration Authority. It recognises that we are actually well paid, and there are people in our community that will be struggling with the huge increase in cost of living, including rates, at a time when some of them may be losing their jobs, maybe not getting increases in remuneration, and I think this is the right thing to do for the term. I think it is good that the Remuneration Authority sets a pool so that when people stand for the election, they know what the remuneration will be. People can freely make the choice whether they choose to stand based on the remuneration that's been set and what the workload expected is. And I think it's fair that that is set for the full triennium rather than have an increase in this time when people are struggling.
Okie dokie, thank you very much. So now we're going to talk to Andre.
Oh, it's my amendment.
Yeah, of course, feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So ideally, we wouldn't have to discuss these types of issues. I agree. But the reality is, every 3 years, this gets put forward before council that we have to make a vote on and talk about. So while it's all well and good to say we shouldn't have to talk about it, we do, because these things have come across council table all the time, and it comes across several months into a new term. and it's not ideal timing. A new council is trying to rebuild trust. It's trying to set a tone. In this case, this term, we need to set a tone that we're willing to show some financial restraint. But then, of course, these types of decisions are put forward by the authority very early on in the term. It doesn't make that process a whole lot easier when you're trying to rebuild trust, when you're trying to set a tone that we need to show financial restraint. So I guess it's something I'd clear up as well, is this is not asking for a pay freeze forever. The wording says for this triennium ending October 2025. So if the authority decided that they wanted to increase the size of the pool mid-term, well, that wouldn't happen until 2024 or 2025 anyway, and they may not even do that. And if they did, what we're asking is that it wouldn't kick in until October 2025. So instead of us having to accept pay rises mid-term, it would kick in between terms, and it means that the public can vote to elect whichever councillors they so choose to, who would then get that increased salary. So instead of it being up to us, it would then actually be up to the public, who would essentially get any pay rises because they would decide whether to elect them or not. This isn't going to lower rates for anyone, so some could argue it's essentially a virtue signal, but I think it's a pretty important and actually worthwhile signal that we can send to ratepayers that we're willing to show some financial restraint and lead by example in doing so ourselves, because next year come long-term plan, actually we're going to have to ask ratepayers to do some pretty heavy lifting, because to be able to afford everything we've committed to is not going to be easy. It's either going to be rate rises, we're going to have to make some pretty substantial cuts somewhere. So I think it's a worthwhile signal to send at the start of a term. And we do have the option to say nothing to the authority, or we can use the opportunity to make it clear that we actually aren't overly happy with the process that we have to go through at the start of every term. So we can either say nothing or just use the opportunity to say something. All it is making a request. I understand we can't bind the authority to anything, but it is just making a request. It's making a suggestion, request, whatever you want to call it, but I think it is a worthwhile signal to send to ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. I will now put the amendment. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
I think you need a division.
Yeah, we're to do a division.
Okay. The Mayor.
No.
Deputy Mayor Cotter.
The Mayor wasn't. Thank you.
Councillor Barber. No. Councillor Coker. Councillor Donovan. Yes. Councillor Fields. Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Abstain.
Councillor Henstock.
No.
Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
No, we shouldn't be voting on it. It's embarrassing.
Councillor McClellan.
Abstain.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Peters.
We shouldn't be voting on this, no.
Councillor Scandrett.
No.
Councillor Templeton.
Aye.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against.
Okay.
The amendment is.
The amendment is lost, so now we'll go on.
Move to
We'll go
substantive.
straight on to the other one.
Substantive.
We've all had our debate, so I'll put the motion on the main one that's up there.
Can you please? Can you bring the decision up, please?
Do you want a debate? We've done debate. You can. You're out of order.
Can you please pull it down?
So we're going to vote on this. Okay? All of those in favour of this, right in front of you, please say aye.
You just said this to me that you were debating the amendment. So
You did say that.
One of the debates, but we just won't listen. Would that be?
You did say that, Mayor. You did say
Okay,
debate
right.
the
So
amendment.
if anyone, before we go any further, if anyone would like to debate the substantive, thank you, Councillor Goff.
Thank you very much for indulging me, Your Worship, and fellow councillors. I'll try and make it quick. But look, I actually just wanted to say that, this is a serious role, and I'm going to support this. But it is kind of funny, isn't it? We have to just take a moment to acknowledge the irony that the chief point in the last item was literally that councillors that undertake additional work should not receive additional recompense. And that was the line that was recycled the most, which ensured that this council by majority voted that through. And then we are literally voting here to pay a councillor additional recompense because they undertake additional work, which I entirely agree with, and I will be supporting it. But I just wanted to say that the irony is not lost on me. The only difference is there is no additional legal liability in the role, unlike the last one. However, I am totally supportive of remunerating the Deputy Mayor more because I do believe that additional workload and liability, but not liability in this case, should in fact be rewarded. So I am supporting the recommendations there and very happy to.
Okay, Victoria.
I usually don't add anything if I don't think I've got anything to add, but I'm with him. I couldn't have said it any more articulately. The irony is not lost on me, and I will be supporting it because I acknowledge the additional work that our Deputy Mayor does.
Mark, then Yanni.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with Councillor Keown and Goff and Henstock there. The irony is definitely not lost on me that those arguing strongest against the directors' fees are being rewarded for the extra work, and I don't begrudge that, but I think the Deputy Mayor does a great job and does a lot of extra work which none of us do, so that's to be honoured and respected. But I will be supporting this, and I find it very ironic and painful that as new councillors we're asked to debate this sort of thing about our own remuneration. That's why the Remuneration Authority is there, to take this pain away from everyone. And to hear the rhetoric around the city about us voting on our own salaries is just mischievous. This is nothing that any of us want to do. It's something we kind of have to do. And that's why we have the Remuneration Authority doing it independently in spite of us. So I'm happy to support this. And
thank you. Yanni?
Yeah, I have to say, I find it ironic that the ones that have expressed irony of what's going on haven't proposed amendments to remunerate the councillors based on the attendance percentage of briefings, meetings, community board meetings, appointments to external organisations, charitable trusts, residents associations and community events. So it's not a case of us saying that we don't have additional work and people shouldn't be recommended or remunerated extra for the additional work. In fact, that for some of us, the feeling is that we all have a role to play. We all do a huge amount of additional work outside of just coming to the formal council meetings, and that inherently it's unfair to pay directors more when actually they may not be doing more work than the rest of us. They just have a different responsibility. So it is incredibly ironic that there hasn't been amendments put by those who are expressing concern and irony at what's being proposed. I totally support the distribution of this governance pool in this way. I think it is inherently a fairer system of remuneration than having the whole political bun fight over who chairs what to get paid more.
That's ironic. Tyrone. Yes, please.
Look, it is a nonsense that we're having this debate. I just want to say that the reason that Pauline is getting paid more is because we all know she's worth it, and she is absolutely worth it. So I absolutely support that.
Kelly, and then Sam.
Yeah, very happy to second this, and yeah, look, I just want to reiterate what everyone else is saying about Pauline. I think she does a fantastic job. And yes, I am trying to embarrass you. Yeah, no, I think you put in a power of work, and the last Deputy Mayor did the same thing, and I'm really happy that you are being recompensed for that. So, yeah, just wanted to support you.
I just think it's hopefully I'm the last one to speak, and we can kind of add a bit of dignity back to this debate. Let's fundamentally remember why we're here. We are tasked legally by Wellington to determine how we split a pool of remuneration. No one likes doing it, but in the end, we've determined that we will recognise the Deputy Mayor for some additional duties. So, as much as we joke and laugh, and I think this is going to look appalling publicly, I do hope we can add a bit of decorum back to this and kind of go, actually, we're entrusted on behalf of the people of Christchurch to do the work on their behalf. The money should never be a driving factor for people. We're tasked with the legislative ability to do it. So can we kind of just add a wee bit of respect and dignity back to what we're doing?
Yep. Andre.
Thank you. I also wanted to point out the irony of, for the amendment discussion, what I heard a number of times was we shouldn't be debating remuneration. Then it got to the next item and everyone all of a sudden was keen to debate remuneration. This doesn't make any sense, and I'd like to point out the irony of that to close it off.
Right. Now, I will put the substantive. Everybody in favour of what you see on the screen, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Ooh.
And note that Councillor Cotter.
Carried. Thank you very much. Good. So, shall we have a break before PX? Or go on to PX and have a break?
You could go into PX and then...
Right. We're now going to move. I now resolve we exclude the public as set out on pages 90 and 91 of the agenda.
Sam's moving.
Sam's moving and James is seconding.
Oh, hang on. I just want my vote recorded against going into PX for item 13, please. Thanks.
Right. We're going to have a break.
And I think now that we've done that, we should have a cup of tea, do you think, for 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
10 minutes? Sorry, we're going to the PX. Moved and seconded. All of those in favour? Against? Thank you, carried.